Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, yeah. Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com, and where you'll find links to everything that you need to know about the show, and live around the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends, and good morning. Welcome back to the show, the Thursday edition of the show. I mean, we are just cruising through. We're like the second to the last day of July in it so far. I just don't know how we continue to scream through the summer so fast. It was a beautiful day yesterday. Looks like potentially, I mean, you never know. Sometimes I get up in the morning and the sun is out and it's beautiful and it's bright, and by the time I get out of the show, it's raining cats and dogs. So some high wispy clouds this morning. And sunshine over the hills here, but current temperature is 48 degrees, so a little bit warmer than yesterday. Hope you're enjoying these few dog days of summer here in the South Central area. Nice up in Fairbanks. They've had a pretty nice summer overall, but overall we're doing okay. Few clouds. 48 degrees, not bad. We'll take it. All right. So today on the program, we are going to be talking in hour 2 with Ben Carpenter from Oversight Live. Former Representative Ben Carpenter, now the host of Oversight Live, is going to come on board and talk with us about, I think we're going to talk about Prop 1. And we're going to discuss that here in hour 1 as well. But it's one of those weird things where we've got some ballot measures that are kind of split up. Now, normally we would, if we were talking about ballot measures, we would, we'd be thinking, oh, this is all going to just to the to the general election. But unfortunately, that's not the case. That's not how things are. That's not how things are going. They are instead, we've got a split. We've got ballots measures on both the primary and the general, and that could create some problems. So we're going to talk about that here this morning's. And we're then going to, we're also going to talk about a little bit more about what we started with yesterday, which was this outcry from some of the utilities about energy crises, lack of gas, increases in rates and everything else. It's gotten, and I haven't decided yet whether or not I feel so cynical. I really do. I feel so cynical because when I have to start looking at some of these announcements through the lens of, are we being played? Is this some kind of crisis that somebody's trying to extort, or are we just being told something? I mean, but that's kind of where we're at right now, right? I mean, I kind of feel like that this is that we're on the verge of somebody's just telling us something to try and push an agenda, and it's kind of a frustrating deal. Anyway, we're going to talk about that as well, and I have opened up the phone lines this morning as well, because I based on what we were just talking about, whether or not the gas, whether the crisis is as real as they say. What does that mean for Alaskans? And when I'm talking about that, I'm meaning we're talking about the John Sims and Tony Izzo from NSTAR and MEA respectively. Both were talking about the increase in costs for fuel and how that's going to affect our electrical rates and everything else. And there was a discussion on, that electrical rates could go up to potentially, I think it was John Sims who said, even to doubling the energy rates. And my question, and of course the potential for rolling blackouts, which they assure us would be no longer than 30 minutes, but you know what I mean. So that being said, I want to know, I want to know, how does that affect you as Alaskans? Does that mean that you're going to want to pull the plug? Will you pull the ripcord? If is that the final straw? Yesterday, I think it was yesterday. One of our frequent guests in the chat room, one of our frequent listeners, Sourdough Steel, said if there were rolling blackouts, that would be the final straw for him and his family, and he would pull the ripcord and leave the state. And it got me thinking last night, again, with what I said earlier in the week, that I've had friends that have left the state, and the one that really stuck out to me was one of my friends who basically said, when I said why, because I could never imagine leaving Alaska. And he said he just wanted to go someplace where if he couldn't afford to pay his electric bill, he wouldn't die. And I thought that was kind of a, that was kind of bombastic to say that. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that, he did have a point, that if there was always some kind of alternative in some places around the States. And so it really made me think. So I want to open up the phone lines today as well in hour one for folks out there to just ask this question. If the electricity rates, well, let's just say it's worst case. If the electricity rates doubled, what would that mean for you staying? Would you stay or would you go? Should I stay? Should I go? That's the question. If if the utility rates or the electrical rates at this point, well, although if you're on NSTAR gas, I suppose your heating bill could go up. But if your utility rates doubled from where they are right this minute, what would that mean for you staying in Alaska? Would you just pick up and leave? Would you consider it? Where are you at? And what does that mean for the rest of us? That's kind of where I'm at on that. So anyway, 319-527-3864. So I want to talk about talk some more about the oil and gas and this outcry now that we're seeing amongst politicos and utility managers and things like that on that, and ask some questions. There was a very interesting quote, especially based on our discussion with John Hendricks from Hex Energy last week, which I highlighted, and I want to get into. Where the heck is it? That I thought was very interesting. So let me tease it for you here. This is from the ADN article talking about this. There's a press conference where Edna DeVries and Suzanne LaFrance and John Sims, and they all got up and spoke about this. But this was the interesting phrase, and just I want you to chew on this for a little bit before we get into this story. But here's the tease. Hillcorp is drilling 27 new wells this year to meet its existing contractual obligations, said NSTAR President John Sims. Texas-based Blue Crest Energy's plans are not coming to fruition this year, and Alaska-owned Hex is delivering less than half of what the utility expects, says John Sims. Now, we heard from John Hendricks last week that they had a cap that they could only sell. They could only find buyers for up to $190 million worth of gas a day. I think that's what he said, $190 million a day, I believe. And so his kind of complaint was there's just not enough buyers and storage, apparently. I don't know. We're getting kind of these conflicting stories. And so I don't know who to believe or what to believe. Anyway, we're going to get into that here in a minute. But again, where would you stand? Just taking all this at face value and saying all this is true. Where do you stand on the price of energy and how it affects you deciding on whether to stay or whether to go in the state of Alaska? I mean, stay here or could go somewhere else. Because, grass is always greener on the grass is not always greener. We always know that. That's, we know that's not how it works. But there are pros and cons. There are trade-offs. And yes, being able to live somewhere where potentially you again, won't freeze to death in the dark if you don't pay your electric bill, that's probably a plus for some people. But what does it mean? Will you stick it out? If you're struggling now, how would it be if your utilities, double in price, or you are faced with, rolling blackouts or something like that? Now, again, the houses are the last thing that gets shut down. They shut down industry, then they shut down businesses, then they shut down, churches and the hospitals, and then houses, kind of thing. So, but if that's the potential, what does that do for your longevity in the state? 319-527-3864. If you want to sound off and do that. I got Jeff on the phone from Homer. We're going to get to him here in just a second as we go through that. And we'll see. Terry in the chat room just said, I'm already planning a trip outside to decide where I want to move to. That's that's not good. That's good. All right. So what does it mean for you if I leave? You will rent your clothes, heap ashes on your heads for a couple hours, and then go off to split some wood? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it means for Alaska if more and more people leave, other than, well, it does a couple things. One, it lessens the draw on the permanent fund. It means less people using less services, but the same amount of money is still going to roll into the legislature. The same amount of money is still going to roll into the legislature because they're getting it from the, from oil and gas royalties and revenues and from the permanent fund. So there's fewer people for, ever increasing amounts of money. And, maybe, I don't know. I hate to ascribe to, to the powers that be that's what they really want, is they want fewer people here so they can do more with what they want with the money that they have. But sometimes it's hard not to feel that way. All right. Well, I do want to get to the phones, and I want to get to this discussion on the oil and gas and everything else that's going on. But we're going to go ahead and get this break out of the way, and then we're going to be back, and we'll see what you have to say. How about that? We'll start off with Jeff and Homer. 319-527-3864. We'll be back. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return in just a moment.
Tune in Friday for our weekend entertainment and movie streaming review with our guest critic, Willie Waffle. That's actually his real name. Really? That's his real name? Man, his parents must have hated him. The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, I see Jeff is on the line. We're going to get to Jeff here in just a moment. Let me see what else you guys have been talking about here this morning as we get things cracking. Good morning, Dodie. Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Terry. Kim. Hello. Good to see all of you. The aforementioned Brian, they call him Mr. Cherry. Fat Ray. Hello. Good morning. Brian says he finally got the deck stained. I know, it's like you want to do all this outside stuff, and it's like, is it going to be nice enough today to do it? Yeah. Fat Ray said Fairbanks has 1 day of summerish. 40 is not summer weather. I heard you guys had a bunch of nice weather. Did I miss something? I heard you guys were having a bunch of nice weather. They kept telling me as it was raining down here, oh, you should be back at Fairbanks because it's still so nice here. Okay. 15 days to flatten the curve. Terry says the utilities are fear-mongering. We know, we know the gas is in the inlet. Maybe they should get off their thumbs and work with Hex. Well, again, that is my question. That's what it sounded like with what John Hendricks said. But now this quote from the paper where they're saying Hex is delivering half of what they expected. What's going on? I've just got it going on. Rick responded by saying, let me start this here. Rick responded by saying, if I said, what happened if the utilities increased? He said it would freaking hurt like hell. More wood, maybe coal, another stove. Hope to God oil prices come down, another Toyo. There's a lot. Richie says, why are we even having to deal with this? How about we start voting the idiots out? Well, I've been advocating for that for a long time. Richie. And look where it's got us. We've replaced 68% of the legislature, but the ones that are pulling the strings are still there because their constituency keeps sending them back because obviously they're fulfilling a need for that constituency. So it's, it's hyperbole, right, Frank? Frank keeps going on about, he's giving us a hard time about talking about people freezing to death in the dark. It's hyperbole, right? Just throwing that out there. Fat Ray says, my job is taking me to the lower 48 this next month. This is another reason to not look for a job, to stay around and just make the house a summer property. Oof. They were trying to Tom Sawyer you, Michael. Yeah, I know how it is. Oh, it's so beautiful over here. Come on over. What does it mean for us Alaskans if you leave the state? Oh, okay. What does it mean? And I guess what does it mean for the rest of us? If people start to flee the state, what does it mean to Alaskans as a whole? I should have been more clear on that, Brian. Sorry. That would have been a great question. What does it mean to the overall health of the state if more and more people leave? What does it do for the rest of us that remain? Well, it's like I talked about before, because, taxes are coming, right? We've all discussed that. We've all talked about that. Taxes are coming. And what's going to happen is the taxes are going to hit. And it's going to take a cadre of Alaskans that are already on the edge, and it's going to push them over the edge, and they're going to leave. And then that same tax base that they needed to raise whatever revenue, it's going to now be spread amongst a smaller pool of people. And then you'll find the new edge, the new people who are on the edge. And because it's a higher tax pool at a higher tax rate, because it's a smaller number of people, then that cadre will leave. And then the taxes will then be placed on a smaller pool of people, and rinse and repeat. It's what we call it the death spiral for a reason, the doom loop, right? That's what it's about. Anyway, let's get back into it. 15 seconds out. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. 3 of you have liked the show. I know I sound like a broken record, but only 3 of you?
Here on the Michael Duke Show, our libertarian talk means that both the elephant and the donkey gets mad at us. Pissing everyone off equally. Mission accomplished. The Michael Duke Show.
I mean, that's my goal in life, right? I just want to, if you can't motivate, you agitate. That's what you irritate. That's just pissing everyone off equally. That's my job. Welcome back to the program, The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We're just talking in the chat room about everything that I started the show with this morning. And I want to get to the phone calls here, though. Jeff's been on the line for a minute. We'll start with the phone calls here before I start otherwise I'll run amok, and it'll be a tough thing. Let's go over to the phones and see what Jeff's got to say. Good morning, sir. What's on your mind?
Well, number one, I like your show. I'm not on the internet, so
okay. Well, I'm so sorry.
I'll give you a what if.
Okay.
I'll give you a what if on this fuel, on this power thing. I sit here and look at everything going on here. Okay, I'm pretty sure the fuel depot over there doesn't have a generator to run that place. This goes down, no boats going out of here with no fuel. Okay. You go uptown, do they all have generators to run them gas stations when the power goes out completely, like you're talking about? Probably not. You're going to go to your gas station, you can't get gas. That'll be a disaster and probably kill people, okay? And they will freeze to death. The other thing I got to say is I have been trying my darndest since I got back here to get firewood permits from everybody out of Peter Machicki's office and the boys there. There's a couple of guys that handle that in the forestry, and I'm getting nothing. Okay. Machicki doesn't call back. He doesn't want to talk. He's too busy, blah, blah, blah. But we need firewood permits. We have all kinds of firewood right up back here for people to get. All right. And I wanted to start some big places putting in firewood mills so there'd be plenty of firewood on hand for everybody to buy or get. But nothing's going on. It's like we're dead in the water. So that's not a good thing. And as far as this whole blackout thing anyways, it's from what I'm hearing from your show and other places, it's the Canada that wants to sell us their power, all right, and up your bill to $2,000, and that doesn't work, all right? So, and everybody's trying to figure out why they voted that way to not put the pipeline in and not do this. Well, I'll guarantee you there's some people in there in power, just a few of them that are in power. They got stock in that company up in Canada, and you can't find out because I've tried. You got to talk to the Queen of England, I guess, because that's Canada. And the whole thing is greed and money. We got plenty of fuel here. We shouldn't be out of electricity ever. Just turn that damn pipeline in this way a little bit, and there should be no cap on anything selling fuel. That's ridiculous. They
Right.
should be able to sell that access to keep us going and make a promise of that. And if they don't, like you said, we need to vote every doggone one of them that voted for that thing. And I'd like to see that printed in the papers and online. And I'd like to see their bills for their houses online, how much they're paying for power. Probably not much.
Well, no,
There's a whole lot I'd like to see.
I'm sure they're paying.
You know?
I'm sure they're paying the same thing that we're paying. I'm sure they'd pay a doubling, but they're also, they're making more money than the average Joe. In fact, the vast majority of the legislature is in the, they're well above the top 20%, usually in the top 5%, because they've got,
Right.
the
Committee.
Yeah, big money from the legislature and whatever their job is on top of it. So it's a difficult thing. And like I said, I'm not quite sure yet whether or not this hollering from the rooftops about the gas shortage is more crisis management, whether it's more fear mongering or anything else, because again, we're getting these conflicting stories. On the one hand, right. Hillcorp is saying we've got a cap on what we can sell, and on the other hand, the news article NSTAR is saying, well, we're only getting half out of Hex what we expect. I mean, so how do you read between the lines on that? You know, it's
Well,
it's just one of those things.
I think it's a little of each, but I think everybody's involved and there's too many. And it really should be simple. They should let fuel go when we need it, especially here in Alaska, to bring the bills down. And there should be no question about that. And I would like to have it printed on the internet and in the papers and everywhere else of who voted for this crap.
Yeah.
Right? Who voted for it? I'm sure it's not Sarah Vance. I know her quite well. We've met many times. And I worked with her when she first started, but she's just as strong as anybody down there. But she's one of few, And
right. Well, like I said,
I just cringe every time I think about it.
Like I said, we've changed out like 60% of the legislature over the last 5 years, and yet it's not those new legislators. Sometimes it's a new legislator that goes down there and wants to kind of put the skids to us, but usually it's the people who've been there for 20 years, the Lyman Hoffmans, the Bert Stedmans, the Gary Stevens, the Louise Stutes, the Bill Wilikowskis, the people who have been there for years that their districts just keep sending back and back. And we could change out all the other players around them all we want. If they're the ones that form the kernel of power, the nugget of power and control in the legislature, then they control the whole thing. Essentially what we have is a 60-person legislature being controlled by about 5 people. 6 people. That's it. The rest of the legislature is just, they're along for the ride. And that's what we're dealing with. And final thoughts here, Jeff.
That is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over. Everybody needs to know this. Listen up, people. Vote those people out. I don't care how long they've been. The longer they've been there, the quicker we vote them out.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
They've
been there 20 years. You're gone. Let's get some people in there. We'll put term limits on there. All right.
I feel you.
Do whatever we got to do, but vote them out, people. That's insane not to.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. I'll push you back on hold. Thanks for coming on board. Let's go over here to this call. Looks like Tom, maybe. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Michael. You're correct. It is Tom.
Hey, Tom. What's on your mind, my friend?
Well, I'm 66 years old, and no matter where I've lived on this planet, well, in the United States, I've always managed to pay my bills. So,
okay.
And being a business guy, you got to look at, picking up the bags and leaving as a return on investment.
Right.
If you looked at what it costs me to leave this state, I can probably pay that extra energy costs through my grandkids. Okay.
Right. It cost you more to move than it would to just pay the extra.
It cost me more to move. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, look at Alaska. Why would you want to leave? Do we all remember Sunday? How beautiful it was?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, look, I
picked up I grabbed my daughter and her husband, and we drove down to Homer, and we hopped on an airplane. And actually, it was Alaska Ultimate Safaris. I know they advertise with you. What a fantastic company.
They do good work.
Jumped on a beaver. Hour and a half later, I'm standing on Brook Falls watching 22 bears feed. Gee, where are you going to go to do that?
Right.
So, it's absolutely beautiful. And the company, we got it on the pilot. So you got on a classic beaver. Her name was Penny. Pilot was Stephanie. And it was just, they're fantastic people. An old school beaver flying through Alaska. You just can't get any better than that.
No, I mean,
I suggest if anybody hasn't done that, that's the way to go.
Okay. So you're in, and I understand that there's going to be people like you and me who are not going to leave, right? I understand that, Tom. I understand. But at the same time, there are people who are going to have to make that calculation. Maybe they are not from here originally. Maybe they came up here to chase a dream, but they've realized that the struggle is real, right? You and I, it costs us more. Right. We got more invested than anything else. And we're going to have a hard time. But there are people out there who are going to be on the edge, and this is going to push them, something like that, where if the utilities doubled, they would be pushed over the edge. And maybe they could go back and live with other family or do, that's my concern. My concern is we're forcing people out, and the legislature seems to give zero craps about whether or not people, they pay lip service to it, but when the push comes to shove and they have the opportunity to try and reduce those things, they don't. In fact, they fight over it. They fight over how much more money
You know what
they can get.
drives? You know what's driving me crazy is you just said the lip service. We sit here and we watch after a hard day working around our property, doing the things we love in Alaska, and we're watching TV at night. All of these ads, every one of them, I don't care who it is, who you believe in, are saying the exact same thing that we all want to hear.
Right.
I get to this point and say, God, I'm done. I want this election over.
Yeah.
I'm tired of hearing all this crap.
I know we haven't even gotten to the
know?
primary yet, and I don't even watch.
No, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm smart enough to know, like I just, excuse me, Biscuit, it's my dog. She's barking at rabbits. I'm smart enough and educated enough to know when they're done with the commercial. Well, it was a bunch of lies.
Right. No.
It's just getting old.
Yeah.
It
is.
You're right. We got 5 people running the state.
Yeah. Well, and that's the problem. How many?
That's almost communism at that point.
We change out all we want, except for those 5 or 6 people never get changed out, and they are running the show. And that's the problem we're facing. So, all right, Tom. Well, thank you for giving me your point of view on that. Appreciate it.
Let me just tell everybody on the radio, if you haven't gone over to seeing the Bears at Brook Falls, you got to do it.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Eric and the crew over there do a great job, don't they?
Yeah, we came back. Eric was at the dock waiting for us. That's Alaska Ultimate Safaris. They're just fantastic people.
Yeah.
He just gotten a beaver and they named it Penny because it's copper. And just I enjoyed the flight over and back, and Stephanie was great. They're just phenomenal people. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate
you guys.
Appreciate
Take
you calling
care.
in. Thanks
Have a great
so much.
day. Bye.
Let's go over to the phone here. Looks like Tim is on the line from Fairbanks. Tim, what's on your mind?
Hey, Michael.
Hello, sir. What are you thinking today?
Well, I just want to go down to Brooks Falls, but I can't afford it.
You just want to pay your electric bill, right?
Yeah, no, I don't know what to tell you, Michael. I've been listening to you since you were a little guy. And Bryce Edgman, there's the guy that needs to go.
I mean, he's definitely one of the guys that needs to go. I would agree. Just the crew that I just named here, and some of it's self-flushing, right? Lyman Hoffman and Gary Stevens are now out, but Louise Stutz is looking to solidify her position by moving over to Gary's seat, and Bryce is looking to solidify his by moving over to Lyman Hoffman's seat. And what does that leave us with? We still got Wilikowski, we'll still have Stutz, we'll still have Bryce, we'll still have Stedman. I mean, those are the people who are literally pulling the strings, and of course, Kathy Giesel, they're pulling the strings behind the scenes.
And we voted Kathy Giesel out, and she's back.
Yeah, no, exactly. So again, tell me again how many can we change out? You could change out all the rest of the players that are around them, but if those 5 or 6 are still holding the reins of power, then and they're still in control, they still have the institutional knowledge, they still know how to play the game when all the newbies show up, what's going to happen? More of the same.
It's more of the same, absolutely. And I just can't. I can't even think. I agree with the last caller. I can't wait for this election to be over. But I guarantee you that I will not be leaving Alaska.
Right. Well, and I'm glad to hear it. I mean, I'm glad to hear it. But unfortunately, you and I both know people who are already considering it, right? I mean, I'm sure you've talked to people who are like, boy, if this gets any worse, I don't know, I'm going to have to go somewhere else, right? I mean, I've heard that noise.
Well, or go get another job or whatever. I mean, I'm 66. I'm retired, but I got another job. I'm going to keep working until I'm dead.
Right.
Whatever,
Yeah, it's a tough situation. I think a lot of us will stick it out no matter what it takes. But the reality is that not everybody is like us, and especially the youngers. I mean, you're 66. Tom was 66. I'm 56. But what about the guys who are, 35 with a family? And they
have to be like us.
Well, and
they have to belong. And you're in if you want to live here, Alaska's a place to be, and you have to just you want to be here. If you don't want to be here, don't be here.
Well, I don't know if it's as easy as that, Tim. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'm
No,
just
it is.
not to be contrarian, but things
You
are.
are. You're.
That's
I
my,
know you.
that's my job.
All right.
That's what people. There are people again who are younger that they don't have the base that we had, that we built up, because it's a different time. And if somebody's going to make the decision whether to heat or eat, and both mom and dad are working already, and I mean, how many hours a week do you work if you're just struggling to stay here? Whereas you could live, somewhere. It's an equation that people have to run for themselves. You and I have made the
First
decision
job,
to do it no matter what.
mechanic was like, I think $8 an hour, and I worked in aviation for my entire life, and I bought a house in Fairbanks for $79,000 or something like that, and I'm still living in the exact same spot. The house burned down. Now the borough, I forget what the hell I got my assessment for, $400,000 or something like that. I still owe $90,000 on the house because I keep refinancing more than I owed when I bought it. It's a never-ending system.
Well, that's not a good. Come on, Tim. That's not a good fiscal decision. You owe more than you did when you bought it. Let's not do that.
Yeah,
Let's not do
I
that.
got a few other things that, when you're in aviation, it costs money.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I see.
You know how to make a small fortune in aviation.
Yeah. How's that? Spend a large one?
Start with a big one.
Exactly. All right, Tim. Well, thank you for thanks for calling in, brother. Appreciate you listening. Thank you for being part of the show today. 319-527-3864. Would you stay or would you go? Okay. Most people have just said, both Tim and Tom have both said that they would stay. Layla in the chat room said, I love Alaska and I'm not moving out of the state I was born in, but I don't know how I'm paying fuel and electric, not to mention property taxes in retirement. And that's less than 5 years from now. I'll be honest. That's why I left Fairbanks. I was doing the math. I was doing the equation. Like, okay, we're struggling to get by here in the interior with, $1,400 in heating and $500 in electric and the mortgage. And how do I survive on this? When I'm in retirement. This is when I made this decision when I was 40, right? And I was like, how do I'm 20 years away from retirement, and how do I do it? It was one of the reasons why I left Fairbanks. I used to say that I would never leave Fairbanks. I amended that to say I would never leave Alaska, but here we are. And I'm not going to leave Alaska, but how many people will make that same kind of equation and that same kind of decision and do the math on it and go, it's just not worth it. Just not worth it. All right, we're going to continue. Phone lines are still open. I don't know. Maybe there's somebody out there that, so far we've had two of the boomer generation who said that they're not going to leave. Got me as a Gen Xer saying I'm not going to leave. Layla's a Gen X. She says she's not going to leave. What is it? But what about the younger demo? What about that working class, middle-aged working class, 35 to 45? What do they say? It's an interesting question. All right, we got to go. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Phone lines are open. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, welcome back. We're in the break. We're going on. And, I'm with Layla. I'm not going anywhere. I mean, I just invested a lot of money in buying my dream job. You know what I mean? That's what I did. I just bought my dream job. And so I'm not leaving, although I mean, how does the math work out for my business if my electricity costs double, right? I mean, if I'm having to reach to pay, $200,000 a year in electricity, what is that? What does that do to the mathematics on my business plan, right? Boy, it makes it pretty tough. I'll be honest with you. It's pretty tough right there. So yeah, I am concerned. But, I just want to know what the effect is on the state. That's what I want to know. But again, I want to know I just want to know how do we make it from here, and how do we get this through to the legislature? Obviously, some of the legislators get it. They know, they understand, but there's that handful out there that could just give two craps about us. Just they're priming their give a crap button, and they can't find nothing in there. Amy says, I'm not moving out of Alaska. There's no snakes in Alaska. That's what my wife said. She goes, no snakes here. I'm here forever. She hates snakes, right? Good morning. Why should we have to leave because of 6 idiots that are refusing to do the job they were hired to do? No one is immune from that nonsense. Time to get it dealt with. Vote them out, says Richie. Well, this is the problem, Richie. They are providing to their constituency exactly what the constituency is looking for. So we, in another part of the state, can bitch and complain and gripe and moan and yell and scream from the rooftops all we want. But if they are delivering to their constituency exactly what they're looking for, then that's not going to change. Right? I mean, Bert Stedman running unopposed. Louise Stutes a lot of times running unopposed. Bill Wilikowski currently running unopposed. Nobody else even bothered to throw their hat in the ring for some of these races. That just tells you one thing, that people are complacent, fat, dumb, and happy, or they are really executing the plan that those constituents want, and they're okay with it. And it doesn't matter unless you can find somebody on the ground in those areas, in those districts, who are dissatisfied and actually get them to get up off their rusty dusty. Then there you go. Terry just corrected Amy. Oh, there are lots of snakes in Alaska. We just don't slither on the ground. We need more elections so that Michael will survive. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, I know Harold's not here, so Frank is trying to fill the shoes of Harold right now, but that's okay. It's okay. Have you been to Juneau? It's rife with belly-crawling venomous reptiles. We are leaving because we have never found a place that we like as much as... Is that we are not leaving? Is that what you meant, Chris? Because I didn't think you were leaving, Chris. But, Audrey says, I'm not going anywhere. Have been here since 1968, and our parents and families and friends are here. Absolutely. I'm absolutely. Someone should have run against BS Billy and have used that video against him. That's true. That's true. It's 100% true. Tim says Mike Prax is a good one. Yeah, I like Mike. He's just, I think that people were looking for a little bit more fire in the belly than what Mike is providing right now. Mike's a good guy. I like him. And Barbara has already said that if she doesn't beat him in the primary, that she'll drop out. So there you go. We'll see. And yeah, Chris confirmed that she's not leaving. We're not leaving. That's what I thought. We are not leaving, she said, because we've never found a place that we like as much as Alaska. And I mean, I'm the same thing. I'm with Audrey. All my family's here. Well, majority of my family's here. Born and raised, spent my whole life in the state of Alaska. My mom was born here. My grandmother was born here. I mean, everybody, this is home. I have a hard time getting out and trying to go somewhere else. I mean, where would I want to live anyway? No idea where I would want to live outside of the state of Alaska. Because, I mean, as Tom and Tim both said, where else can you go to get, just step out on the front porch and look at what I'm looking at? How, where else are you going to go to get this? All right. Let's continue here. We'll get more into this as we go on. And Ben Carpenter is coming up here at the top of the hour. We'll talk with him and see what he has to say about this as well. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. 12 of you have liked the show. Thank you.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Okay. I mean, we could stay on this topic all morning, but I do want to get over to to talk about the ballot measures. And ironically, and I'm sure that this was strategically done. Ironically, most of the time when we think about ballot measures, we think that they're going to be on the general ballot, right? The general election ballot. That's what we look for. But surprisingly enough, there is a ballot measure number 1, proposition number 1, that is on the primary election. And this is, that's unusual, and it's troubling for a couple of reasons. The biggest problem is, of course, we know that in a primary, generally speaking, they have a much lower turnout than a general election, especially in a primary where for the vast majority of offices and positions that are being voted on, the primary really doesn't matter, right? Now, I don't want anybody screaming at me. I'm not saying don't go vote. I'm saying that for many people in many areas, the outcome to them doesn't really matter because, unless there are more than 4 people running for the same office in their district, those 4 people are still going to be on the general ballot in November. Yes, I know we have to vote for the primary for the governor and for the U.S. Senate seat and for the Congress seat. But many other, for almost anything else, there's no reason to show up at that point. And that's the justification that many people will use. But there is a reason, and part of that reason is ballot measure number 1. Now, ballot measure number 1 is interesting. This is a bill that was authored by Bruce Botelho, which if you're familiar with Bruce Botelho, you know from one side of the political spectrum he comes from, and Calvin Schrage. Schrage is also another one of the sponsors, and who else? Oh, Dave Monson, the musher, Dave Monson. Those are the movers and shakers behind this ballot measure number 1, which would basically change how giving and contributions are done for voting in the state of Alaska. The name of the ballot measure is, I guess it was formerly known as Established Campaign Contribution Limits from State and Local Elections Initiative, which, wow, I mean, there's a thing. And it gets down into the minutia a bit. Suzanne Downing's got a good breakdown on it. The Watchman also has a breakdown on it. Either one of those will give you kind of an idea of what it looks like and where it goes. But essentially, as Suzanne Downing talks about, it would quadruple the abilities for PACs to give while weakening the political parties. And this is all part and parcel, I think, of the whole ranked choice voting scheme, right? That was the whole point of ranked choice voting. We want the parties to have less influence. We want anybody to be able to come in and do this. And again, this goes back to what we were talking about yesterday when we were talking about how Democrats are now slipping their skin and now becoming independents or undeclareds, right? Which, again, we all know is code for I'm a Democrat, but I don't want to say I'm a Democrat because that wouldn't fly in the district that I'm in. So therefore, I'm an independent, and maybe people won't really pay attention to what I'm saying, and they'll just vote for me because I'm a non-offensive party, or I'm not offensive in my political affiliation, even though, like I said, even though I am technically, I mean, I will caucus with the Democrats. I believe the same things. I'm everything else, but I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent. It's a way to continue to whitewash the political philosophies of people, and to do it, which is exactly what they seem to be wanting to do here. They seem to want to, to neuter the power of the parties to endorse or to support their own candidates. Now, as a libertarian, and understanding that we have the two-party dichotomy here, philosophically, I'm in support of giving less power to the parties. Don't get me wrong. But the fact is that this ballot measure does a couple things. First of all, again, by quadrupling what a PAC can give, and then chaining down and not changing the rates for the political parties, you are basically giving an outsized influence to these political action committees. And these PACs are everywhere. I mean, I could create a PAC tomorrow and start raising money and donating money and everything else. And of course, many of these PACs are being funded by huge outside groups who are, again, the stereotypical dark money groups. So they are having an outsized influence in our elections, and they're neutering the ability of the parties to support their own candidate, or you as a citizen. And in fact, the Watchman said in their column, they talk about how the opposition statement in the ballot pamphlet, authored by Liz Vasquez, David Wilson, Edna DeVries, Larry Baker, and yes, Ben Carpenter, emphasizes that government should not interfere with ordinary Alaskans' abilities to weigh in on the political sphere. And they say it right there. Campaign contributions are a form of political speech. To limit someone's ability to support a candidate is to limit their voice in the democratic process. And again, they're talking about limits. If it passes, the state would impose a limit of what an individual can give, which would be about $2,000. Additionally, there'd be a $4,000 limit on groups to local candidates, with an $8,000 limit from groups to gubernatorial candidates. And actually, it even gets worse because the restrictions apply to each election cycle. So if after after this election, another candidate's talking about running for office and you give them $2,000 this December, you would be unable to contribute to them for the remainder of the election cycle. Meanwhile, PACs could give up to $4,000. And how many PACs could you dig up for a variety of candidates out there? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 PACs for a single candidate? Look at how much these elections are costing right now. How much money is being $1.8 million for JKT in the gubernatorial race? I don't know, man. We need to be paying attention to this stuff. We'll talk to Ben Carpenter about this when we get back. The Michael Duke Show. Okay. Yeah, that's what McCabe just said. Ballot Measure 1 wants to limit citizens' contributions, but not PACs or independent expenditure groups. Right. And it doesn't raise the level for the parties either. So all of a sudden, they're nudging right up there on what the parties can contribute. And there's only one party, right? Whereas there's multiple PACs. You could get 5 PACs, and the PACs, the party can give 5,000, but the PACs can give 4,000, and you get 4 or 5 PACs, and all of a sudden they've outspent the party 3, 4, 5 to 1. I mean, I don't know. Is the answer just unlimited expenditures? Then it becomes whoever's got the most money wins, right? I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy. Charlie says, I don't understand the impact of ballot measure 1 in light of the recent Supreme Court case deciding that any contribution limits are a violation of the First Amendment. I have questions about that too. Maybe Ben can answer that for us here. Maybe N. But Kevin just said, an independent is just a raging Democrat in the witness protection program. Terry says, be very careful with the wording on Prop 1. It doesn't say what you think it says. Really? What does it say? Because that's how I read it. Maybe it's something else. Sourdough Steel says, if the undeclared Democrats can get away with it, then it sounds like Republicans need to educate themselves on the candidates. Isn't that the answer to almost everything we've talked about? That citizens should be educating themselves on this, and yet the problem is that they're not? Who's funding ballot measure number 1? Oh, Arabella Fund. Who else was some of this initiative was being funded by some big outside donors. Same thing with the ballot measure number 2, the ranked choice voting. They've raised $5.5 million in outside money to keep ranked choice voting. The repeal people have only raised $750,000. So they're being outspent like 6-1 right now. But yeah, ballot measure number 1 is being supported by a whole lot of outside money as well. And again, it's stealthily approaching because it's right there on the primary. What was the headline from the other day? In a nearly pointless Alaska primary, low turnout, ranked choice voting, and unlimited donations may help the Democrats. Talking about the primary. And that's exactly part of the problem, right? Yeah. And there is some irony to that. Frank just said, the irony, we just talked about how are we going to afford to live here. Then we just jumped into giving our money to a candidate so we can have other people spend our money. That's the truth, isn't it? All right. I'm going to turn the phones off for now. Let's just
Goodbye.
We'll turn the phones off and we'll be back to that here in a second. Let's go check in with Ben, make sure that he's all ready to go. And see where he's at this morning. Hello, my friend. How are you? Uh-oh, I got no audio there. You're not muted. I just double checked. Let's try that again. He's got to check all the microphone settings. I know. I feel his pain. I've had to do the same thing every freaking time. Okay. He's working on that. Well, he's working on that. Oh,
all right. You should be able to hear me now.
I can hear you now. Don't you hate that? When it resets that microphone setting?
I reset the video and I forgot to reset the audio.
Yeah, no, dude, it happens. It happens every freaking time. Tell all the listeners how disappointed you are that they haven't liked the show yet. There's 13 of them that have liked the show, and there's 60 people.
You and I are the only ones in the room that completely understand that feeling.
Yeah, no, exactly. I know exactly where you're going from on this. All right, Ben. I obviously want to talk a little bit about ballot measures BM1 for sure, because you helped to author the opposition statement on it, and how important it is. But I'd also like to talk a little bit about what I was saying earlier in the show about this kind of all of a sudden this new fervor over Cook Inlet gas and the rolling blackouts and HEA and MEA and we don't have enough and we can't get enough. I mean, John Hendricks was on last week telling us how he had a cap. He could only sell up to the cap. And now there's a quote in there from John Sims that says Hex is only providing half of what they were expecting. And I mean, so many conflicting things here, Ben. I don't even know what to believe anymore. Right.
I have some thoughts on that. But
okay, good.
What was the day that Hendricks was on? I found the one on the 10th. Did he come back?
No, he was. Maybe it was the 10th. It wasn't last week. It was the week before. So,
all right.
But that was the one, right? So that one was the one. And yet, again, it seems to run contrary to what some of the narrative is coming out of the utilities and the mayors and everything else. So I have questions. I have questions. So anyway, we'll see where that goes on there. But let's start with that, okay, Ben?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. I'm going to let you hang back in the green room there because it's so comfortable in there. So comfortable in the green room. All right, my friends, we're about to jump into it again. I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm trying to get more people engaged on the Facebook stuff, right? So that's why I'm asking for you to like the show. And on YouTube, apparently subscribers don't matter as much anymore as likes. I don't know how that algorithm works, but I was doing some reading yesterday and the day before. And apparently the likes drive more engagement than the subscribers. I don't know. So just mash the button or hate it if you hate it or like it or do whatever. Here we go. Let's go to it.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the interwebs at michaeldukeshow.com, where you'll find links to all the social media sites where we simulcast the radio show on video. You can actually look at the handsome beard here this morning on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. Also links to our audio-only stream and the podcast and more. Plus, live around the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station, and or FM translator all the way from Kodiak, across the peninsula to Seward, all the way up to the interior, Fairbanks, and Delta Junction. Good morning, my friends. Welcome back to the program, the Thursday edition of the Michael Dukes Show. Second hour, hour one was so fast. I didn't even get to everything that I had prepared. I wanted to talk more about ballot propositions and everything else, but we got stuck talking about the fervor, the recent and a sudden fervor over it's like somebody just remembered all of a sudden, hey, there's a crisis over gas. We forgot all about it until just now. And we're talking about that. And we were going to talk about the ballot propositions, Prop 1 and Prop 2. Prop 1 in the primary, Prop 2 in the general. That's an interesting development there. We're going to talk about that as well. This hour, Ben Carpenter joins us, former representative in the state of Alaska down here on the peninsula. Now the host of Oversight Live, which is when the legislature's in session, it's a weekday show, where every night about 7 p.m. he would come on and dissect everything that happened in the legislature that day. I don't know how busy he's been. I don't think he's been doing a lot, but he does have some valuable insight into a lot of these things. And so we bring him on every Thursday to discuss, and we welcome him on the program this morning. Good morning, Ben. How are you?
Good morning, Michael. I thought it was funny that you haven't seen me, but that doesn't mean I've not been busy.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that you are very busy.
Peony harvest season was late this year, and we're not done working until like 8 p.m. at night. So it's whether it's harvesting peonies or marketing peonies, we're busy.
Exactly. No, just because you're not there doesn't mean that you are not working hard. So Ben, you probably heard some of what I was talking about in the last hour, and I know that you've been. So I was just telling Ben during the break that I want to talk a little bit about this sudden rekindling of the urgency of this gas shortage, especially with some of the things, the conflicting stuff that we seem to be getting. But I also want to talk with him about ballot measures, because he did help to author the opposition statement to ballot measure number 1, which is coming up in the primary, which I want to talk about. And of course, we could talk about ballot measure number 2, but let's start off with the energy thing. You know that I had John Hendricks from Hex on here earlier this month. I thought it was last week. The weeks are all blending together. It was back on the 10th. And he said some very interesting things. Part of was, that he was saying that the crisis, he didn't say manufactured crisis, but he was kind of indicating that the crisis may not be as bad as it was, because he was talking about he could only sell up to $190 million worth of gas a day, and they were being kind of capped and limited. And yet now, in the last 2 or 3 days in the papers, you're seeing comments from NSTAR and MEA and Chugach, and then the mayors got up there and said, we're in a crisis, and it's going to be rolling blackouts and sudden death and everything else. And the one comment that got my attention was the comment from John Sims, who said that that Hex specifically, he talked about Hillcorp and he talked about Blue Crest, but he said Hex specifically was delivering less than half of what the utility expected to receive, which seems to fly directly in the face of what John Hendricks was saying last week. And so from your perspective, having been in the legislature, having been following this, being out there in Nikiski and near what do you think is happening here? Is it a crisis, minor or major? Is it being leveraged? What's going on here, in your opinion, Ben, when you look at this?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's big dollars, so it's most definitely leverage. Nobody's perfect. I mean, if you're looking at it from human perspective and business perspective, business never goes the way that you expected it to or that you want it to. It's usually some flavor of what you want. So I suppose that Hendricks is putting a very positive spin on his operation, because that's what you do when you're in charge of your operation. You want to have your positive spin. Has he been able to deliver everything that he said he was supposed to? I don't know. I don't work for him. I don't work for NSTAR. I can't verify that fact or that claim that Sims is putting out. It is they have competing interests, right? They're in opposition. They're in business together. So I don't know. It doesn't surprise me that Sims has got his perspective and Hendricks has got his perspective. And that's what we're seeing.
Right.
I think what people need to keep in mind, though, is that there's plenty of gas in Cook Inlet. It's just expensive to go get. And the decades of policy that we have maintained in this state have driven other producers out of Cook Inlet because it is so expensive. Now, what does that mean to us? It means that if you wanted a producer to produce more gas out of a Cook Inlet, you have to be willing to pay more for it in order for them to go produce it. This is proof that it works, like the economics work. If it's not lucrative enough, businesses leave. Only those that are willing to take the risk or have deep pockets or some other motive for staying are the ones that are staying. It is price. Price is the controlling piece of this. That is the thing that we need to keep in mind. We are paying in Alaska. We are currently paying less than other people are paying down in the lower 48. So from a top-down perspective of somebody who's looking at natural gas problem in Alaska, they're saying, well, what is Alaska really complaining about? They're in the bottom half. Their population is in the bottom half of people who are of the cost of natural gas.
Right.
Texans pay more for natural gas than Alaskans do.
Right.
Okay?
We're like the sixth lowest. We're like the sixth lowest price of gas across the country, yet we have the smallest population base for that same gas.
Right. Now, hear me. I am not an advocate for paying more for a commodity. Like, I don't want to pay more for gas. I want the lowest cost gas that I can possibly pay and heat my house with, right? Even though I don't heat my house with gas, I heat my house with wood and propane, which comes from oil, not natural gas. So the point that I'm getting at here is, if we want our economy to be supported by natural gas, we have to realize that from a national perspective or from a cost perspective, we have benefited from some of the lowest cost gas in the nation. Okay. Well, it's local. We got lots of gas here. We should have low cost gas. The problem is that gas, the cost to get that gas out of the ground keeps rising. And I think it's rising faster than what we're willing to pay for it. Okay. Inflation over over the short term, last few years here since COVID, basically 20% inflation. Okay. Do we see our prices of gas rising that high? I'm not sure. I didn't do the math on that. The point that I'm getting at is the producers that go out and produce the gas, they have a lot of cost increases dealing with that or relating to that inflationary costs. And they have the risk of putting their own capital up front to go find that gas. Alaskans aren't we're not helping in that regard. We're not making it less risky for them. They're putting their money up front. And then we, through our regulatory agency, are putting a downwards pressure on the amount of money that they can make, the amount of profit that they can make with that risk. Okay. So that's the structure. That's the equation that we have where they take the risk. We want the lowest cost. And now we have fewer producers and less gas. So we have to recognize that our demand for artificially deflated prices, this is like the market would sustain or require a higher price to have more competition and more producers in Cook Inlet.
Right.
But we're artificially reducing that through our RCA and causing the price of gas to be where we want it, but now we have fewer producers.
This is market interference, is what you're saying. Essentially,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
If the free market was running, and Brian kind of summates the whole thing here, he says there's a lot more $7 gas than there is $5 gas. And you could substitute 7 for 12 and 8 or whatever. I mean, if they were paying $15 per MCF for gas, well, then guess what? There'd probably be more holes being drilled right now if it was for $14 versus $8.
Yeah. So
that's just the metrics of it.
Most recent contracts were $13 MCF. Okay. The most recent emergency contract was $16 MCF, which ironically is what Instar and Glenfarne said that they had reached an agreement on, or were reaching an agreement on, with regard to purchasing gas through phase 1 of the pipeline, was $16 MCF gas. Okay, well, $16 MCF gas, maybe Hex and Hillcorp and Bluecrest and other producers would want to produce gas in Cook Inlet because, hey, I can make money at $16. If you're going to pay for $16 gas coming out of the pipeline, why don't you pay $16 gas coming from Cook Inlet?
Right, right.
Then we can go get gas.
Right.
There's no problem.
So again, it lays out the question as we look at these kind of competing narratives and everything else. And I found it really interesting that all the utilities jumped behind the podium and started shouting from the rooftops, 2 days after the session opened and came to a close, and the other one started to open and everything else. And now they're trying to put pressure. This is a pressure tactic, right? To put it on the legislature.
100%.
The bottom line is, as you said, is that we have had an artificially low price for gas in the state forever, and we've gotten used to it. And if we want to be real about it, it costs more to get it done. And here you are. If we were paying more, if instead of paying $10 or $12 per MCF, we were paying $15, $16, $17 per MCF, which would still put us in the middle of the pack in the United States. I don't have the chart here in front of me, but some states are paying $18, $20 per MCF for gas. Then, I mean, yeah, there would be more players out there drilling more wells or doing more things. And that's not even to talk about the regulatory capture or the pressure from the state on various things to get it done. So, I mean, again, I think this is just confusing for a lot of people when they don't realize what's going on and they don't realize the backstory.
Yeah. So we have gotten used to artificially deflated prices, and we've gotten used to a size of government that we're not paying for, that we don't have an economy that can sustain. And that is because of the oil tax structure that we have. It is because we're reliant upon federal dollars. It is because we're now reliant on permanent fund earnings. The government continues to grow, albeit with inflation, the cost of government has actually decreased slightly, but the decisions that are being made in the legislature is to grow spending for sure. So yeah, I mean, Alaskans are just disconnected from the cost of a lot of things. We've structured it that way, not understanding what's really at play, or the underlying fundamentals of the decisions that we make. Okay, you want to put a regulatory agency in place that regulates monopolies. So basically what's happening is you've got producers out in Cook Inlet. They're being treated like a monopoly for price reasons, for cost reasons to the consumer, but not protected from the risk that they accept. Right.
It's a one-sided price fixing, essentially.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
They accept all the risk and we get to control the price. That doesn't work in the market. Well, if you accept the risk, you get rewarded.
And I think that was one of the reasons why Hillcorp came back and said, 2 years ago, we can't renew these contracts at the current price, because again, they could understand that. And we're starting to feel the pinch on that. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, HEA was the first utilities whose contract ran out. It ran out in March. And since March, we've seen I don't know about your electric bill, but my electric bill has gone up almost 18% in the last 15 months. So expect it to go higher, right?
Yeah, exactly. Nobody in Alaska who's paying attention to their energy costs. This conversation is not a surprise, right? We all know we're paying more for energy. The question that people should be asking themselves is this a temporary thing, or is this just the way that it's going to be in the foreseeable future?
Yeah.
Right now, we do not have a solution for electric or for gas that's going to reduce cost. It's not permitted. It's not in the process. It's not going forward to reduce the cost in any substantial manner. We're asleep at the wheel with regard to leadership in the state to generating that new energy.
Final thoughts, Ben, on the current gas situation. Where does it go? Pipeline, what's happening? Give me your final thoughts here. Wrap it up.
All the feedback that I'm getting is that the legislature is going to fail to act in this last special session. That's everything that I'm getting. So all of the narrative that you're seeing about, we really need to be wise about this, right? All of the narrative in the press that's fear mongering, if you will, it is all structured to get people to realize the problem that exists. We need to have lower cost gas and a path to lower cost gas or lower cost energy, period. The pipeline project is the only one that's permitted. You've got a private enterprise that's interested in spending their own money and taking their own risk to make it happen, but the legislature is standing in the way. All of the narrative is to try to influence the legislature to act in the time remaining to them. So that's what we're seeing play out.
Ben Carpenter is our guest. We're going to continue. When we get back, we'll talk about the ballot measures as well. That's what's coming up. And any other final thoughts that Ben may have on the whole oil and gas, or the whole gas thing as well. We'll return. The Michael Dukes Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Again, what's most interesting about this to me is that really this is, again, the free markets work until government tries to come in and interfere, right? I mean, they're setting price fixing. We have become so used to gas at a certain level, almost the lowest in the country, that that we are used to it. And yet you expect private companies to come in and do their thing under that mantle, like you said, accepting all the risk. And and then being hung out if the pricing doesn't work out or something else doesn't go on. It's a conundrum, and we should expect that we're going to be somewhere in the middle of the pack by the time this whole thing is done for the price of gas. That would be understandable from that free market perspective, right, Ben?
Yeah, I agree. And I think about it this way. The only real true monopoly that's not controlled by the people is NSTAR, right? They're the monopoly. All of our utilities, electrical utilities, there's only one HEA that provides power on the Kenai Peninsula, right? But they have a board of directors that are elected by the people. So
right.
Why should our members make a decision, elect people for our cooperative to govern our cooperative, and then have a state agency like the RCA second guess our decisions? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. Well, and again, the each individual utility has their own minor monopoly, but they're all trying to work together. They can't do it individually or do it alone, because again, as we discovered, and I didn't even know this, Ben, yesterday or day before, that the entire gas system is not compartmentalized. It's all or nothing. If HEA runs low on their pressure, somebody else has got to increase their pressure to get the system back up to speed. So HEA can't go it alone. MEA can't go it alone. NSTAR can't go it alone. Everybody's got to work together. And so I don't know where we're going to go. I don't know where we're going to go from here. If the doom and gloom works out and it ends up doubling our price of gas, it's going to be problematic for us. But at the same time, as you look at the markets and you look at where we are gas-wise across the rest of the nation, that would make sense if we were at double the current rate of gas at this point. If we were in the, high teens or something like that, that would make more sense, because that would, again, it's all about number of people, how much they're paying, and the number of people versus how much is being put up against the system and paying off debt and everything else. The higher the number of people using it, the more money they're making. We're an anomaly at this point.
Yeah, economics 101. The reason why we can have a conversation about low-cost gas from the proposed pipeline is because of volume. The only way that the price of gas comes down for us is because we don't, on this side of the export facility, we don't have to pay for that liquefaction and the transportation costs to get the gas to Japan, for example. Okay, so Japan pays $9 to $10 MCF to get the gas to them. We don't pay half of that cost. We don't pay half of it because we don't have to have it liquefied and we don't have to have it transported. It's here already. So that's why we can say we have $5 gas or $6 gas, right? Because there's a large volume going out of the state.
Yeah.
And then we get a portion of that at the cost that it is for us, right?
Right.
So
economies of scale. That's what it all comes down to in the end. All right. Well, let's jump over to the ballot measures, and of course, I know where you stand on both of them. But I was interested to see how they finagled to get this ballot measure number 1 on the primary versus getting it on the general election. So I want your take on that, how that was done, and of course the why. And of course some of the messaging, right? With some of the messaging we're hearing, keeping dark money out of politics and everything else, while again, the irony of it being funded primarily by dark money, right? SEIU and Arabella and all these other funds are pouring millions of dollars in to try and get us to allow these things to happen. So we're going to get your take on this, and the importance of getting out for the primary, even though to some people it's kind of a useless primary, but it's going to matter here in the long run. Let's get back to it. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Ben Carpenter is our guest. Please share the show as well as like it. Let's get to it.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay, we're continuing right now. Ben Carpenter is our guest. He's the host of Oversight Live, which I guess is it's on a bit of a hiatus because there's really nothing happening, right, Ben? But
well,
you're
there's
still-
nothing happening in the legislature.
right,
And
exactly.
even if it was, I'm not sure that I have the time to vote to it right now with
Right.
regard to farming. So
Yeah, he's got the harvest season going on right now, and as a farmer, he's a busy guy. But as a former legislator, he's got some serious insight into a lot of these things, and that's what he brings to Oversight Live, which you can find at OversightLIVE.com. You can also find it on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch as well when he is out there, or X. I'm sorry, not X,
Yeah.
Twitch, X. Right, sorry. Ben, I want to talk about ballot measures. We got two big ones this year: ballot measure number 1 and ballot measure number 2. Ballot measure number 2, of course, is the repeal of ranked choice voting. I think we all know where you stand on that, where I stand on that. I think repealing that would be one of the best things that we could do. Of course, interestingly enough, the numbers just came out from the APOC reporting: $5.5 million, the vast majority of it, like 90 something plus percent of it, all from outside groups. $5.5 million on the keep the ranked choice voting, and the local repeal effort has raised $750,000. So it's a 6-to-1 advantage right now on the repeal side. That's going to be important. But really the sneaky one is ballot measure number 1, which has to do with campaign contribution limits. And somehow they got it attached, instead of to the general election where the vast majority of Alaskans will actually show up, they instead got it attached to the primary. So I want to talk about that component of it, and then talk about, some of the problems that are with ballot measure number 1. Again, full disclosure, you helped write the opposition statement in the ballot pamphlet to that. So you definitely got a dog in this fight, but walk me through ballot measure number 1 and the timing of it being on the primary instead of the general, and then the problems with the proposition itself.
yeah, the first question that I asked myself is, why in the world are we having this on the primary? It surprised me. I thought it was on the general election, like normal, right? So it's either a mistake by the people who filed it, or they intended to have something that would drive participation in the primary election, because usually you have a lower turnout in the primary election. So if you really wanted to get this passed, you wouldn't want it in the primary. You would want it in the general. So I don't know there. Anyway, it does show some long-term thinking, because this initiative was submitted and properly filed on October 17th, 2024. Okay. So then the question is, well, if it was so long ago, why is it only on this primary election? Why didn't we have it at the last election? Well, the Constitution, our state constitution, says that the initiative is going to be placed on the first statewide election held more than 120 days after the adjournment of the legislative session following the filing. So the filing was in October of 2024. The next legislative session was January of 25, but it's not 120 days out. Like, it hasn't ended 120 days. So you had to get through that legislative session, and then the following election, whether it's a general and an AS 1545-190 specifies that it's either a general election, primary election, special election. Anyway, those three, and any of those three elections, it could show up on. So because this is the next election, this is where it's showing up on. That's why it's now instead of in November. The lieutenant governor, the government, nobody had a choice in which election it showed up on, other than the people who filed the initiative, right? So you could game the system and say, well, if I want it to be on the primary election, then I back it off and I make sure that I get it filed in the time period in which it's going to show up on that election. So, but the government, the Division of Elections, had no choice. They had to put it on the primary election.
Right, as per the statute. Now, before we get into the details of it, what does that mean? And you just said if you want it to pass, you'd put it on the general versus the primary. But my argument is, if you can motivate a smaller group of special interests, we've seen that in special elections and others where they have a very low voter turnout, that they can manipulate it by bringing in large groups of special interest as a voting block to vote this in. Do you think that was part of the machinations, or do you think this is just
it could be
happenstance?
It could be. I mean, does the math show that the left shows up at primary unimportant elections more than the right does? if that's the case, then that calculus could work out. There's no way of knowing in October of 24 that we would have so many candidates for governor. I mean, you might be able to take a guess that we would have this many, but you didn't know. No one the whole list hadn't formed yet, right? So
right.
Yeah. If your calculus is that my side is going to show up more than the other side in the off election or the primary election, then yeah, that would be the calculus.
Yeah.
But
well, let's talk about the details of Prop 1, because it's convoluted. It's got a lot of pieces to it, and it's got a lot of intricacies. Even in reading the descriptions in a couple of the news articles that talk about it, it's complex. But the problem is the main, and if I can summate it here, and you can tell me if I'm close, the main problem here is that it disenfranchises both individuals and parties by not allowing them to utilize their freedom of speech to support the candidates that they want, and instead bolsters the power of PACs in an outsized way. And of course, we've seen the proliferation of PACs. I mean, the number of political action committees out there and independent expenditure groups has grown exponentially just in the last 5 years. We're seeing this outsized impact of it. Is that kind of, am I summating it properly here? Is that what we're looking at?
There is only one thing that we need to keep in mind, and this election is an example of what is to come if we pass this. All right. Dark money is the boogeyman. Define dark money. If you can't define what dark money is and you're just regurgitating dark money, then you're part of the problem. Okay. You got to understand what they mean when they say dark money, because dark money is what is fueling this ballot measure 1. Okay. So
and honestly,
it's going to get rid of it.
And honestly, it's fueling the opposition to ballot measure number 2 as well, right?
That's exactly right.
I saw their new campaign sign as I was driving to Soldotna yesterday was vote no on 2, protect, keep dark money out or whatever. And I'm just thinking the irony of a whole campaign financed by dark money saying keep dark money out. That's part of the messaging.
Yeah, that's right. So when we passed ranked choice voting, we also said, hey, for reporting purposes, you got to report your top 3 contributors. Okay. So that's the answer to dark money, is we get to know the top 3 only contributors. All right. So what we have seen, and what I think is the future of elections especially in Alaska, is independent expenditure groups and other organizations outside of political parties and groups affiliated with political parties, like Republican women's groups, that type of thing. The political action committees and independent expenditure groups is the wave of the future. Okay. That's where the organized effort is going to be. It's not in the political party. That's waning. You got too many rules and too much lack of control. Independent expenditure group and political action committees, a few people control the decisions on how money is spent. All right. Now, they can raise as much money as they want, and right now they only have to report the top 3 contributors. That's what the public sees. Okay. That's their answer to dark money. If you want to combat that and you're an individual, right now you can combat that with, and you've got a deep pocket, you're a multimillionaire, you can throw as much money down to combat that as you want. Okay. But if you pass ballot measure 1, then you're limited to a certain dollar figure. Okay. So your free speech, you can only speak your mind in the political sense up until you reach that dollar figure, and then you're done. You can't buy any more ad time. The independent expenditure group does not suffer from that same requirement. So they can continue to raise money and continue to spend money against you. So you're now forced to go to an independent expenditure group or a political action committee if you want to spend more money, and then you have to be your top 3 contributors get reported. So this is forcing everybody who wants to spend money to go towards these political action committees or independent expenditure groups to influence the elections. The individual can't compete. Okay, that's what ballot measure 1 does for the individual.
Right.
Which is interesting, because if you're going to poo-poo political parties, but you create a system that forces people who want to spend large sums of money to go to an organization that's going to influence an election, what we formerly called a political party.
Right. Well, and to define dark money too, that the problem is, even with the whole top 3 contributor thing, we hear these numbers: the 1630 fund, right? The Arabella fund, the Tides Foundation, whatever name that you hear on this. The reason we call it dark money is because the way a lot of these places are set up is that they then don't have to report. They're not required to report who their individual contributors are.
That's right.
They just give money. They report how much money they gave. They say, hey, it's us, it's the Arabella fund, whatever, but they don't have to report who's contributing to them. So all of a sudden it obfuscates where all the money is coming from. It's not just outside groups. Kevin says there's a difference between dark money and outside money. Right. There is outside money, like when Mike Dunleavy's brother gave him, whatever it was, $700,000 for his campaign. That was very obvious who was contributing it. But you get this dark money fund where it's the blank fund, the, fill in the blank fund, and they've got 10,000 contributors, but they can't tell you who any of them is or how much it is. That's the obfuscation and the dark part of dark money.
Yeah. And we bought into the solution to dark money. This is what I was talking about earlier, is listing your top 3 contributors. Okay. That's what we agreed to when we instituted ranked choice voting. We the people said, that's our solution. We'll require the top 3 voters. And now it's transparent. Dark money is solved. It didn't solve anything. We don't know any more. we know just a smidgen more than what you might have otherwise. We still do not know who is actually contributing to promoting ballot measure 1 and opposing ballot measure 2. We still don't know who that is. That all of that dark money is all of those funds are coming from people who are unidentified.
And that's why, again, the top 3 contributor thing is essentially lipstick on a pig, right? That's all
that's exactly it.
Yeah, it's putting a pleasant face on it, but we still don't know where the monies are coming from, and that's why we consider it dark money. And quite honestly, all you have to look at is, from my point of view, is when you look at these things, how much of that money is coming from these groups outside versus how many people here in Alaska are actually supporting it. That should tell you a lot. And we'll get in, and that goes back to ballot measure number 2 and everything else. We'll continue with this in just a moment. Ben Carpenter is our guest, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return with more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break right now. Ben Carpenter is our guest. Cindy asked the question, Ben, isn't money coming from outside of Alaska used for good or bad all dark money? It would be interesting if candidates and ballot measures could only receive in-state donations. But, again, I think we kind of covered that. But, Ben, if you want to clarify that for Cindy before we go on.
Yeah. And this is the interesting concept, because the U.S. Supreme Court has spoken with regard to spending money on free speech, and political spending is free speech spending. Okay. So it would be interesting to know whether this gets challenged. If ballot measure 1 is successful, does it get challenged to the U.S. Supreme Court and get overturned because they just spoke about this, right? So we may be much for naught here. The promoters of ballot measure 1 may end up losing in the long run.
Right.
But yes, and so I don't know whether a similar statute that says, hey, only money that's in-state money can be spent in election. So only free speech, in-state free speech can be spent on an election. Outside the state, free speech can't be spent. I don't know whether the Supreme Court would see that as a line that can be drawn in the sand with regard to free speech, because our free speech doesn't stop at the border, right? We have
universal,
free speech either way.
Right.
All of this is just to try to force the issue, which a educated electorate would be able to see through in a heartbeat. Okay. All you have to know is that this is money coming from outside. And the reason all of this money is coming from the outside boils down to one thing and one thing only: the United States Senate. That's it. They see Alaska as a cheap date. They can spend millions of dollars here for a population that's a voting population that's a fraction of 700,000. That's a city in most other states, right?
Right.
And we have the same number of seats in the Senate as every other state. Okay. So all of this money is being spent in order to influence changing out what is a very close Senate organization, right? They want to see the senators in the state of Alaska be left-leaning senators. And that is why this money is being spent.
Right.
That is the whole purpose here.
And that takes us back to ranked choice voting. I mean, this is the reason for ranked choice voting. Scooter Kendall, part of the Murkowski cabal, and he wanted to make sure Murkowski was protected, and they wanted to be able to do that. And in fact, that was the actual that phrase "cheap date" was actually used by the original contributors to the ranked choice voting thing, because they said Alaska's a cheap date. We could spend $5, $6, $7 million in Alaska, which is a drop in the bucket, because they've only got 600,000 voters, versus California, where it would take hundreds of millions of dollars to sway the same number of people on a per capita or proportional basis. And so that's why they said Alaska's a cheap date. That's why we became the poster child for ranked choice voting, and that's why we're going to keep seeing that money roll into the state for that reason alone.
Yeah, the Republicans have identified the Sullivan race as a battleground race, nationally, right? They see that the writing's on the wall. If Alaska moves left in the U.S. Senate, then we conservatives, or we Republicans, or however you want to put it, are going to lose power in the U.S. Senate. So this is why I'm pointing out there's so much outside money, there's so much dark money, the same thing but two different terminologies here, being spent on influencing Alaska, is because of this Senate makeup. Okay.
Right.
So House race, yes, it's close, but it's not as close as the Senate.
And it's one of 400 versus, two of 100. Right. I mean, that's where we're at right now. And Murkowski's already in the bag. We know that they're going to get that deal. And so, Dan is going to be struggling with this, and we're already seeing. I mean, we're seeing right now. I can tell you that the Peltola campaign is probably, in the numbers that I've seen, is outspending Dan probably 2-1 in radio media right now. And that's going to be tough. Now, are people going to buy into it? I don't know. But if you get a lot of these independent expenditure groups and these PACs who are going to jump in, this is just the primary. Wait till we get to the general. You think it's bad now. Wait till you get to the general and you only got 4 candidates up there, and it's going to be Dan and Mary against whoever else. It's going to be a knockdown drag out.
Yeah. People just need to keep in mind that when they go to the ballot box, if you are wanting to keep your ability and others' ability, don't just think of yourself. Like you're like, I don't donate to any political campaigns. I don't have enough money for that. Well, there are people that can and do. And if you want to limit their voice, their ability to spend, then you vote yes on this. But if you want to keep your free speech and you want to keep everybody else's free speech, then you vote no on this.
Right. So the battle cry becomes no on 1, yes on 2. Essentially.
That's correct. No on 1, yes on 2.
We're going to continue with Ben Carpenter. We'll let him summate here in the last segment here, the Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe. Let's do it.
On the Michael Dukes Show, we talk about the serious Alaskan issues of the day, but in a not-so-serious way. Because, first of all, we can't be bothered to take it seriously, and second of all, we may or may not be drunk. Here's Michael Dukes.
I don't know what he's talking about. This is water in my water bottle. It's definitely not vodka. All right, Ben Carpenter, our guest, host of Oversight Live. We were just talking about it, and this essentially boils down to free speech. That's the ballot measure 1 essentially boils down to free speech. Do you want to give more outside, especially dark money independent, because there is a difference. We just talked about the difference between dark money and outside money. And I think Kevin McCabe in the chat room put out he says, dark money equals hidden funding sources. Outside money equals spending independent of the campaign's candidate disclosed. Bundling is transparent collections of donations funneled to the candidate. So that's kind of the general primer there. But the bottom line is, if you want to keep your free speech and not prevent other people's free speech from being impeded, then you will vote no on number 1. That's essentially where we're at right now, Ben, right?
Yeah. Just put this out as a fairness issue, okay? I'm trying to simplify this as much as possible, all right? Do you think it's fair for somebody who doesn't live in Alaska and you don't know who they are to not have any limits on how much money they can spend influencing your election, and you have limits on how much you can spend on influencing elections? Do you think that that's fair? And if you do, then you're going to vote yes. But if you don't think that's fair, then you're going to stop this in its tracks by voting no.
Right.
On one.
Well, let me hypotheticalize this here for you. I don't even know if that's a word, but I used it, so it is. We talk about the campaign limits on the individual at $2,000 per election cycle, by the way. That's not per year. That's per election cycle, which would mean, 4 years for a president and 2 years for a representative. And, then so 2,000 for the individual, 4,000 or 5,000 for the party. And then you've got potentially 4,000 for each individual independent PAC. Now, here's the problem. Like I said, PACs are like rabbits. They're multiplying, they're breeding, they're like everywhere. And the worst part is you get these funds like, again, I keep using Arabella, but there's a ton of them out there. This is one of these funds, the Alpha Fund, whatever you want to call it. And what they do is, they can take and gather all that money. And the minute they hit the campaign contribution limit on Keep Alaska Free or whatever they want to call the PAC, the minute they hit the limit there, they can spin off another PAC and create another PAC and donate money from that fund to that PAC and create another PAC. And that one, the Beta Fund, now that one gets paid. And once Beta's filled up, then they can spin off another one. And Charlie, they've got millions of dollars sitting in their coffers from undisclosed donors. We don't know who they are. They bundle it all together. You don't know. They don't give you the information. And each one of these PACs, Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie, every one of them say the top 3 contributors is Arabella, whoever. And you'll see that each one, they're just spinning off new entities every time they hit a limit. So all of a sudden, it is essentially unlimited money, and we're still being disclosed that it's only this one dark money group that's creating it. That's the problem. Am I hitting it right?
I think so. We could find a number of reasons to oppose ballot measure 1. And then you would have to remember all of those reasons. The average voter is not going to be able to do that. Okay. When they go into the ballot box, it needs to be very, very simple. If you vote yes for ballot measure 1, you are saying, I want to limit my own ability to spend money on a campaign and those of all of the Alaskans on influencing an election. But I'm okay with people outside of the election, outside of Alaska, donating money to groups and they don't have those same limits. That's what you're saying. Okay. So when you go to the ballot box, you need to realize that a no vote keeps things as fair as possible. I can spend as much money as I want. The other side can spend as much money as they want. We may be able to agree that we're spending way too much money on elections, but this ballot measure doesn't solve that for both sides. It only solves that for one side of the argument.
Right. And again, this reminds us again, and of course, you're assuming that the average voter is going to hear that message of, if you want to impede free speech, you'll vote yes. If you want to keep free speech, you'll vote no. But unfortunately, the messaging that's already out there, and this was the messaging that came with the original Prop 2, the ranked choice voting, Because again, I was right in the thick of it in Anchorage, in radio, looking at what was going on. And I can tell you right now, 90% of the messaging on ranked choice voting, of all the commercials that we played supporting ranked choice voting from the group of Alaska's for Better Elections and the other expenditure groups, all focused on the dark money component of it, right? There was like 1 out of like 8 commercials that talked about the actual ranked choice voting. Everything else was keep dark money out of politics. All of it, by the way, being funded by dark money. And that's the thing. I think the electorate keeps getting snowed, and that's what they're going to try and do with this one. They're going to try and say this is all about keeping dark money out. Well, it's really doing is it's doing exactly the opposite. It's opening the door for more dark money to be applied and to limit the ability of the individual or the party to influence the election.
Yeah, you're going to be a message for Alaskans, right? You're going to be governed by your betters if you don't educate yourself and be able to tell the difference between political nuance and the truth, between rhetoric and the truth. Okay. The truth is written in the ballot measure itself. The truth is written in the law. You have to understand it. You have to understand. There's no alternative that is going to protect you from people that are unscrupulous like this, who want to abuse the system. They want to turn the system towards their advantage, right? There's no protection other than an educated populace. So you have to understand this, okay? At a very basic level, all you need to understand is that one side of the political argument is trying to limit your ability to spend money and communicate while they maintain the advantage of not having that same limit.
They're actually increasing their limit on it, right? Imposing limits on you where you currently have none, and increasing their own limits that they currently have as well. Down to the last 2 minutes here, Ben. Final thoughts on this and anything else, the special session, anything else? Let's wrap it up here. Your final thoughts today.
Yeah. Well, my take on my understanding is that the Senate, many of the leaders of the Senate have been out of state, have been at some political conference. And I've seen, well, there's been no official notice of this. I've seen multiple things on social media saying that this is the case. And so you really have to question the priorities of those individuals, that some political conversation happening out of state is more important than the energy conversation that's supposed to be happening in state, that is your responsibility. I don't know what it is that they're talking about or what was so important down in Chicago that people needed to go down there for. But I don't think that it probably rises to the level of being more important than dealing with the rising cost of energy in Alaska and moving forward on a gas pipeline. Okay. That's what you're hired to do.
Right.
You're not hired to go to Chicago.
Right.
So I think that the legislature is probably not going to take action on this, would just be my guess. I hope that there's enough pressure applied that I'm wrong and the legislature comes back and is able to pass a clean gas line bill.
But you wouldn't put money on it, is what you're saying.
No way. I would not put money on it.
And as far as educating the electorate, we're trying to do that here on the show. And I know Ben's trying to do that. But we need an informed electorate. It's been the struggle since the inception of the country, is an informed electorate. I don't know how we move that needle. I don't know. We haven't moved it much in 200 years. I don't know how we do it now, Ben. But I guess we keep trying. I guess that's what we do.
You listen to the Michael Duke Show and Oversight Live.
There you go. That's it. There was a shameless plug right there. Ben Carpenter, thank you so much, my friend. Go pick some flowers, enjoy, touch grass, enjoy some dirt. Appreciate you coming on board.
Thanks, Michael. We'll see you later.
All right, my friends. We got more coming up tomorrow. Wow, it's Friday tomorrow already. This week, this summer. It's going to be August on Saturday. Wow. We'll see you tomorrow. Be kind, love one another, live well. The Michael Duke Show. Okay, Ben, the burning question. Rick says, when's the next show, Ben? That's Don't know.
I might be able to see some light at the end of the tunnel when the harvest is over, and that's probably maybe we'll have everything that we're going to pick by the end of this week. weekend, right? So potential I could focus on it next week, but I'm not making any promises.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, a day doesn't go by that I'm thinking, hey, you know what? I'd like to talk about that. And then it's 8 p.m. and I'm just sitting down from anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Haven't even had supper yet. And now you're like, boy, I really should do a show, but I can't do it.
Yeah. And picking peonies pays me. The show does not. So
yeah, exactly. No, I'm with you. I did that for years doing the radio show, not making, whatever it was, $20 a show or whatever that I made at the time. And I was like, I'm doing this. I'm still doing it. But yeah, having to do it every day. And especially when other things get in the way, I feel it. But it's important. And like I said, Ben, I think that the biggest challenge here is that I do not know how to motivate the electorate. There's just people are just, again, they're worried about fishing season or NASCAR or television, whatever they're worried about. And while those things are fun and important and they're important to these people individually, isn't the future of where we're going as a state, isn't that important too? I mean, isn't that I don't know how to move the needle on that. I really don't. 25 years I've been doing this show. I still don't really know how to move the needle on that.
Yeah, there's a biblical reference here that's appropriate. You had an entire population of people come out of slavery in Egypt and spent 40 years in the desert because they couldn't get their poop in a group. That generation had to die off.
True. And then they demanded a king on top of that, right? I mean, later on, there's like
that's exactly it.
Came out of slavery, spent 40 years wandering, still couldn't do what to do. And then they're like, well, we need a king. Okay, my God, you people. I mean, it's a challenge. It's a challenge for sure.
It's human nature. And it was true then and it's true now.
Yeah.
You got to have people to remind you. That's what we are, right? They're the voice right now, reminding you that you got to pay attention. This is important. And we are the king. If you really are trying to stretch the analogy out here, and I know we're out of time, but we are the king. You want self-government? You want government of the people, by the people, and for the people? There's no king. You are the king. You're the decision maker.
Well, I'm always reminded of that commentary and that phrase, that old saying. This is that government is what happens to you when you stop paying attention. And I know Sourdough Steel just said most people are of the mindset that it doesn't really make a difference. That's what he hears. True. I mean, they feel that way. But the more, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more that you feel that way and the less time you participate, the more it's likely to be true. That's the problem. That's what you do.
Yeah. The easiest person to lie to is ourselves. And that is a lie.
That's usually the first people we lie to is ourselves, right? That's how it works. All right, Ben, we'll get back to the flowers, my friend. It's good to see you. Thanks for coming on board. We'll catch you next week, okay?
See you later.
Thanks so much. All right, folks, that does it for us. We are out of time. Who are we going to have on the show tomorrow? I don't know. I really don't. We'll have to see. I know I'll be here, though, and hopefully you will be here, too. Be kind, love one another, live well, and on the way out, before you close the window or turn the app off, there's a little thumbs up button there. Just mash that thumbs up, will you? That's all I ask. The show is free. All I ask is you just mash that button. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.